Your landlord is living quite the comfortable life on your mortgage payment, while you're busy, building equity in a depreciating asset you'll never actually own. You've been sold a sentimental lie called the American dream, which, let's be honest, is just a sophisticated way to lock your capital in a 30-year prison of property taxes and maintenance costs. I'm here to dissect your middle-class obsession with owning a primary residence. It's not an asset, right? It's a liability that eats your cash flow. If you think a 3% appreciation on a suburban house is wealth building, well, your math is as outdated as your landlord's wallpaper. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. You've committed yourself to 3 decades of servitude for a structure that requires a new roof every 15 years and a constant stream of cosmetic upgrades just to keep up with the neighbors. While you're busy arguing over paint swatches and the price of lawn care, the truly wealthy are busy with capital allocation. They understand that a home is a service you consume, not a strategy you retire on. I see the homeowner photos on your Instagram feed, but all I see is a stagnant pile of bricks bleeding 2% in annual maintenance and another 1.5% in property taxes. You're effectively paying the government and the bank for the privilege of saying you own the dirt. It's an emotional purchase masquerading as a financial strategy, and frankly, it's keeping you broke. I'm going to show you the cold, hard numbers that prove your 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is a chain, not a ladder. We're going to discuss the massive opportunity cost of that $100,000 down payment and how it could be working 10 times harder in a portfolio of assets that actually pays you to own them. If you're allergic to the truth, feel free to keep scrolling and browse Zillow for another investment that will keep you working until you're 70. But if you're ready to graduate from a consumer to a strategist, you need to pay attention. I'm about to dismantle everything you thought you knew about real estate. Stay tuned, because by the end of this, you'll understand why the wealthiest 1% rent where they live, but own exactly where you sleep. I see you scrolling through interior design blogs, dreaming of the day you can finally drop a $200,000 down payment on a primary residence in a trendy zip code. It's a charming sentiment, really, if your goal is to commit mathematical suicide. You're so desperate to own the walls you sleep inside that you've completely ignored your capital deployment ratio. Analytically, while you're stressing over a leaky faucet in a house you barely own, I'm renting a high-utility condo in a Tier 1 city. I get the view, the proximity to high-value networks, and the luxury of calling a landlord when the HVAC dies. I don't own the building, obviously, but I own my time and my liquidity. That's the difference between a consumer and a strategist. Let's look at the numbers, because frankly, your emotions don't pay dividends. If you tie up $200,000 in a primary residence, that capital is dead. It's trapped equity earning you exactly 0% in cash flow. Sarcastically, it's costing you. Between property taxes, insurance, and the inevitable maintenance of your vanity project, you're hemorrhaging cash. Contrast that with geo-arbitrage. I take that same $200,000 and use it to control a $1 million multifamily asset in a high-growth secondary market, places where the price-to-rent ratio actually makes sense. My money is working in a market where the ROI is 12 to 15%, while I live in a city I enjoy using someone else's capital. I don't care about your emotional attachment to a neighborhood. I care about the fact that my capital is leveraged 4 to 1 in an asset that pays me to exist, while yours is buried in a backyard you only use for 3 months a year. You're playing house. I'm playing the spread. You're obsessed with the security of a title deed, but you're one market correction away from being underwater on a mortgage that dictates your entire life. But even this level of arbitrage is just the entry point, because once you understand how to decouple your lifestyle from your balance sheet, you realize there's a much darker reason why the middle class is being systematically priced out of the very neighborhoods they're trying so hard to own. Frankly, let's stop the LARPing and fix your balance sheet before you're 60 and still bragging about equity that you can't even eat. Step 1 is a cold, hard look at your housing burden ratio. If your mortgage, property taxes, and insurance premiums consume more than 30% of your gross monthly income, well, I have news for you. You aren't an owner. You are a glorified tenant of the bank, and you're actually paying them for the privilege of maintaining their asset. It's a liability disguised as an achievement, and frankly, it's keeping you tethered to a desk you hate. Step 2 is where most of you will lose your nerve. You need to liquidate the equity trap. You see, that $200,000 you have saved in your walls is dead capital. It's sitting there earning 0% while you pay 7% interest on the remaining balance. It is, quite literally, a mathematical tragedy. Sell the property, unlock that trapped cash, and stop letting a pile of bricks dictate your net worth. Step 3 is the 70-30 deployment. I want you to take 30% of that liquid capital and use it as a down payment on a cash-flowing rental or a high-tier syndication. But I'm not talking about a fixer-upper in your childhood neighborhood, right? I'm talking about markets where a 7% cap rate is the floor, not the ceiling. You are looking for yield, not a weekend project. The remaining 70% stays liquid or goes into high-yield instruments to provide the floor for your lifestyle. Step 4 is the end game. Reinvest the cash flow. When your rental income from a property in the Midwest or a multifamily syndication in the Sunbelt covers the rent on your sleek urban apartment, you have officially won. You are effectively living for free in a world-class city while your real estate portfolio appreciates on someone else's dime. You see, you aren't paying someone else's mortgage. You're using someone else's labor to fund your freedom. But before you run out and call a realtor, understand that this math only works if you avoid the one tax trap that resets the clock for every amateur investor. If you don't know how to shield this transition, the government will take a 20% bite out of your freedom before you even sign the lease on your new place. Because there is one specific clause in the tax code that turns this strategy from a smart move into a generational wealth machine. Listen, don't get it twisted. I'm not suggesting you become a slumlord who fixes toilets at 2 a.m. Quite honestly, that's a low-income hobby, not a strategy. If you find yourself in a crawl space with a flashlight, you haven't built a business. You've simply bought yourself a second job that pays less than minimum wage. You see, real wealth utilizes professional property management or passive syndications, period. If you are holding a wrench, you are losing money because your time is your most valuable asset. While you're busy trying to save $100 measly on a plumber, you're losing thousands in opportunity cost, money that could have been spent finding your next deal or actually advancing your career. Your projections need to be grounded in reality, not optimism. You must account for a 10% vacancy rate and a 5% maintenance reserve in every single model. If the numbers don't work with a professional property manager taking their 8% cut, then frankly, the deal is trash. It's that simple. Most amateur investors buy properties that only cash flow because they're doing the manual labor for free. That's not a return on investment, that's just a side hustle with a high barrier to entry. Leave the sweat equity to the people who don't value their time. You are a strategist, a capital allocator, not a handyman. If you can't afford to pay someone to handle the headaches, then you simply cannot afford the asset. But even with the perfect manager and a rock-solid maintenance reserve, there is a hidden psychological barrier that stops 95% of millennials from ever reaching the finish line. It's the homeowner's ego, the irrational desire to prioritize aesthetics over arithmetic. And if you don't kill this instinct now, you'll end up with a beautiful house and a bankrupt portfolio. I'm going to show you exactly how to separate your ego from your equity before it costs you your first million. The wealthy millennial's paradox is quite elegant in its simplicity. You see, you rent where you live, but you own what you rent. It is, quite frankly, the ultimate geographic and financial arbitrage. While your peers are busy signing 30-year death warrants for a zip code they can't actually afford, all for a key day Instagram post that garners 200 likes and, well, exactly $0 in ROI, I am telling you to prioritize your balance sheet over your social standing. Naturally, you have two choices. You can have a home that looks sophisticated to your neighbors while it quietly suffocates your cash flow, or you can build a portfolio of high-yield rentals that eventually buys your freedom. One is a cage with crown molding, the other is an engine for generational wealth. Stop letting your ego dictate your biggest financial decisions, right? If you are ready to stop playing house and actually start playing the game, I need you to perform a brutal audit of your housing burden ratio today. Take your total housing costs, rent, insurance, utilities, and weigh them against your gross income. If that number is over 30%, you aren't settling down, you are drowning in an illiquid liability. You know exactly what to do. Tighten the belt, relocate if necessary, and redirect that capital into assets that pay you to exist. Your future self doesn't care about the backsplash in your kitchen, it cares about the equity in your brokerage account. Subscribe if you are tired of being average and ready to start thinking like the 1%.